Professor David Menashri is the head of the Alliance Center for the Iranian Studies at Tel Aviv University. Thank you for joining me on this very tough day for Israel and for the world. Did you expect the Iranians to absolutely go ahead, send in drones in the hundreds and missiles attacking Israel last night?
It could have been expected. Not from yesterday, maybe even 6 months ago. Iran absolutely doesn't want this conflict to deteriorate and involve Iran itself. They established this ring of axis of resistance with proxies to do for them the job. What happened in October 7th is that Hamas went to this operation without coordinating it with Iran. So Iran found it very easy for itself to say that because they didn't consult with us, we are not interfering in this war. Let them do the job. And they have good reasons, because they established this axis of resistance. Not that Iran will go and help them, but rather that they will come and help Iran at the moment of need. And this was not the moment that the Iranians wanted this to erupt or escalate. Now, of course, Iran was in dilemma all these 6 months, and mainly since repeated Israeli attacks, and finally 2 weeks ago against killing 7 of their generals, officials in what they call the Iranian consulate. Now, this is a bizarre argument about Iran, because it's accusing Israel to attack their consulate, because it should be immune, it should be protected by international law. You don't attack embassies. But you may remember that in 1979, Iranians attacked the American embassy in Tehran and kept hostages for 444 days. So this was not the reason. The point is that Iran did not react to all these actions, including the attack on their consulate, and people started asking questions. People in Iran said that you promised that we have the upper hand, we are so strong, we're so capable. Why you are not taking any action? And there are many people in Iran who did not really endorse the policy of the Islamic regime. Added to it is all these proxies. You send our children to fight, and where is Iran? The question was raised by the Houthis, by the all other proxies, needless to say, Hamas. So this pressure somehow forced them to take an action with, I would say, a lot of caution. They made sure to announce what they are doing. They made sure not to do something which is enforce Israel to retaliate. And they declared that the whole thing is over before it started in Israel. When they sent the drones, they sent their instruments to attack Israel, they already in Tehran, they announced that we have taken our revenge, and with this is closed. Unless Israel would do something, we will do something even stronger.
Do you think that Prime Minister Netanyahu will stop at this point? When you look at what happens in Israel, true, in terms of deaths, you didn't have what was anticipated. You had several killed in Jordan. Will Prime Minister Netanyahu take revenge back?
If I think that Netanyahu will take revenge back, I can tell you what I think the government would do. They should celebrate the victory last night as much as Israelis can celebrate these days, and say that we will take action in the appropriate time and place, and put it aside. You don't have to take revenge immediately. There is no need. The problem is that Israel suffers such horrible attack on October 7th that the government felt obliged to compensate by attacking. Sometimes if you don't attack, you put them under pressure. You know, yesterday, before they sent these drones to Israel, Iranians started celebrating their victory. And what is the victory? That they made Israelis hide in their safe rooms to be under pressure. And now they are under pressure. If you look at Tehran, there are queues to gas stations for people who are afraid from Israeli attack and make sure they have enough gasoline to escape from Tehran. So what is your victory? Better victory. One other point. We managed after these 6 months to have a coalition. Luckily, we have President Biden. But with Biden, we have Britain, we have France, we have other countries. We have Jordanians helping Israel to protect itself. We need to preserve this coalition. The problem is that there are some limits to what this government can do. And to preserve this coalition with Arab countries, United States, European, ultimately you will have to pay with the Palestinian coin. And that's the question. It's at the doorstep of the Israeli government. Are you capable of doing it? But if you have some radicals in the government who are already making announcement that Israel should attack. Attacking what? Can we defeat Iran? For 6 months, we are struggling with your immediate neighbor, small Gaza, and we didn't finish the job. Israel is not capable, and this we learned from our first Prime Minister Ben-Gurion, that never go to war without having a superpower allied with you, and that Israel should not be engaged in long wars. So luckily we have Biden so far, but we cannot go on and involve in Tehran in addition to Gaza, Lebanon, the West Bank, and whatever you have from Bab el-Mandab to the Mediterranean.
You bring up a very important point about Israel always coming out and claiming that they can take on Iran. And you bring up the point that they need their allies. President Biden was very clear that Israel should not go back into Iran at this moment and retaliate. So if you had to have a big ball and look at what Israel should do in retaliation in the future, what might that look like?
For many years, when Israel came with these slogans that Iran is the existential threat and we should take care of it, we should attack, it goes back more than a dozen years now. We knew that it's difficult, and I personally thought he will not do it. Most of this time, Netanyahu was the prime minister. He is wise, he's smart, he's experienced, and he will not do it. At that time, I organized a round table at Alliance Center of Iranian Studies. We brought 2 professors, but professors, they don't know much, they can only talk. But there are two prominent generals, one of them former Air Force commander, one of them former intelligence, commander of the intelligence. And when I remember when I came back, my wife asked me, so what did the general say? I don't know. I don't know what they said, But I tell you what I understood. We don't have military option. It was clear that it's so difficult. And Israel, to attack Iran, it takes so many things. But you can do, surgical attacks here and there. And Israel has done a lot of things. But to decide that we go to war, now I would say that Iran learned its lesson. This was not a victory for Iran. This was an almost total failure, provided is the end of what they have done. They were not successful. They put Israelis in shelters or for a couple of hours. We are there for 6 months. And they only proved that if this is their revenge, it's easy. But my suggestion to the government would have, wait a bit. We had a prime minister, very smart, Levi Eshkol, and Israel was attacked by the Syrians, and asking where is the reaction, he said that my diary is open and the hands is writing. I take notes of it. And the revenge will come one day. Right now, we take notes of what is doing. That's what we have to do. And we cannot, in the top of it, we cannot afford struggling with all our neighbors at the same time.
Let's go back to the proxy situation. You still have rockets flying from Lebanon. Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. So Iran is still involved. What do you think Israel's going to do on that border? None of the residents can go home.
Oh, you are so right. And this goes back to the same syndrome, the same problem. That because the attack of October 7 was so devastating, you immediately rushed to take steps without thinking of the day after. Now, in Gaza, we had this, it was not legitimate, but I think it was essential for Israel to attack. With Lebanon, they started. We know that the Lebanese don't want war, and they said it openly, Nasrallah himself, and so did Khamenei in Tehran. They didn't want war, but they're testing the limits. So they're taking action. Israel is attacking back, and it was not wise, in my opinion. And thanks God I'm not prime minister or defense minister, to ask people to leave their home. Now you cannot even bring them back. So you have to think before asking people to go. When you ask people to leave, you actually permit the Hezbollah to attack more and more. Because if there are not casualties, you can attack. But they wiped out half of Manara, the kibbutzim in the north. And what we do, we wait. So I think that this game is acting against us. Now about the proxies.
Well, before you get to that, you still have massive tunnels, a network far superior to what we see in Gaza. Israel has let that go. So even if you stop it at the moment, you know full well that Israel at some point needs to deal with it. And what is that point?
I don't know when is this point. This is not the time for it. Israel cannot fight in several fronts at the same time. History does not end today or tomorrow. Finish one, and I think that the war in Gaza is more or less finished, and then go to the next step. I agree with you fully that Lebanon, Hezbollah, is a threat much more than Hamas, and much more of any of the other proxies, so to speak. But Can we do it together? I think our generals said it's very difficult. So involving Iran, if you involve Lebanon, you involve Iran. If you involve Iran, you involve the United States, and then you have other superpowers. This will be the beginning of putting the entire region on fire. And I think Americans don't want it. Israel doesn't want it. And Lebanese don't want it. Now, it is connected to the issue that I wanted to say about the proxies. We now make a mistake of speaking about the proxies as though all of them are the same. They are not. Let's take, for example, Lebanon. Hezbollah is a proxy, but it's part of the government. It's part of the state. And they know that if they take action, the action against Lebanon will not be solely against Hezbollah, but against the state. And I don't want to say they cannot afford it. It will be difficult for them to digest it.
How would it be different with the Houthis in Yemen?
I'll come to the Houthis in a moment. What is close to them is in Iraq. They are also proxies, but they are also in a government that has good relation with the United States so far. So for them to go out of the way and take harsh steps, they have to think about the state. The Houthis are different. The Houthis are ideologically more radical against Israel than Iran. They are Shiites, but are different sect of Shiism. And they are more independent. But you know who criticized Iran before any other of the proxies for not taking action? Are the Houthis. So we are taking everything. Where is Iran? So the Houthis are different. And then you have proxies in Syria, the Afghan brigades and the Pakistan brigades. They are being paid to fight there. And there is resentment in their own countries that they are sending their children. Why they are sending Afghanis and Pakistanis? Because unlike what many people think, Iranians do care about casualties. I mean Iranian casualties. Why did they organize these proxies? Zainabiyun and Fatimiyun, because they saw some of their generals, including one of them, Hamadani, killed. And then when the generals were killed and officers were killed, they were bringing them for burial in Iran, but they buried them at night, that people will not notice that because they are so sensitive. But they don't mind to fight until the last Hamasi or Pakistani. So I think that Iran is, the other point I have to say about Iran, they are smart, they are pragmatic, their policy is rational, and wherever there has been a clash between their ideology and the interest won over ideology, to the point that Ayatollah Khomeini, the founding father of the Islamic Republic, issued a fatwa, a religious decree, stating that for the sake of the interest, maslaha in Arabic, it is permissible to destroy a mosque and abolish the basic principle of religion. The question is, what is maslaha? What is the interest? Is it the interest of Islam? Is it the interest of Iran as a state? Is it the interest of the Islamic regime? Or is it the interest of the supreme leader? And the problem in Iran today, that all authorities are in the hands of the supreme leader. For the first time, since the presidential election of 2020, the three heads of the three branches of government, legislative, constitution, the parliament, and the judiciary, they are in the hands of close people to Ayatollah Khamenei. So actually, there is more radical, but still they are much more calculated than we think. And the proof was what they have done yesterday. This is not the kind of war that you think if you want to take a revenge. Final point is that Iran has gone through a traumatic war with Iraq for 8 years. When they say never again, I was thinking they may have borrowed it from the Israeli treatment of relation to the Holocaust. So they are afraid. And in the beginning of the war in Gaza, the former foreign minister of Iran, Zarif, approached Khamenei, telling him openly, don't dare to engage in war in Gaza, because this is the dream of Netanyahu. He wants to drag us into this war to bring America in, and this is not our interest. And I think that Khamenei understood it. The final issue here, we all speak about Khamenei as a radical, extra radical, and so on and so forth, knowing who are the people around him. He is more pragmatic than the people around him. So if you think that, okay, Khamenei goes and an angel will come, it is, wishful thinking. We don't know what will happen tomorrow, but we know what happens now. And I think that the lesson for Israel is preserve this coalition with the people who supported you last night.
Looking at Saudi Arabia, who did not condemn Iran, and looking at how Jordan helped Israel, are they going to pay a price with Iran?
I agree with you fully, except that they didn't go all their way to help Israel. They helped themselves.
No, I was about to say that.
I know.
Yes.
I know that you know.
But I want to understand what you're thinking in terms of the Gulf states and their relationship with Israel, as well as with the United States and Iran.
It's a long history. But I think that here we said, I think we paid our dues to President Biden and Americans, but they also had their mistakes. America and the West helped Iran to become such a tiger. America has removed the enemy number one of Iran, Saddam Hussein, in 1990 and 2003, removed the enemy number two of Iran in the Taliban in 2002 and then 2022 or something like that, or they withdrawn. When the American presidents, it's not only one, it's the three last presidents, saying that their aim is to withdraw from the Middle East. If you are Saudi Arabia, what would you think about it? And it's not surprised that last year, Saudi Arabia renewed its diplomatic relations with Iran. They live in this sensitive region of the Gulf. Most of their income comes from oil. And they were ready to leave Iran and form a coalition of countries which are actually against Iranian domination of dominating this region. But then you didn't see any move. And it's first, it's the United States, and it's now proving that it's serious in being engaged in this region. And second is Israel. We have this Abrahamic Accord. This is one of the most important things that happened in the last 50 years with the Arabs. But here is the issue. In order to promote this and expand this, you need, as I said earlier, to pay with Palestinian coin. You have to say something about the future of the Palestinians. You cannot expect Saudi Arabia, who is the guardian of the holy shrines and in its own mind and mind of others, they are the leading Muslim country responsible for the entire Muslim countries, and bring them to help Israel against Iran, while what is going on in Gaza, and I told you I can understand why Israel attacked Gaza and why it continues maybe even, but you cannot convince no, with Jordan is different. Jordan is not on the Gulf. Jordan is on the river. So it's for them it is an existential threat what Iran is doing, and Iran is smuggling into Jordan. It's having its own cells in Jordan, and when I say that I must say I admire what they have done recently. It is because not they did it for us, they did it for them, recognizing that we have the same destiny.
Before I let you go, I want to hear from you. What is the reaction of those that are anti the regime on the ground in Iran as reacting to what happened last night in Israel?
Iran is a very complex country. What you see is not what it is. They say speak in different languages. Almost half of the people of Iran are not Persians, and their policy and their identity is complex, because you can put Iranian identity and history on three different levels. The one is the imperial Persian the history of Cyrus the Great and so on, a more national, the Persian culture. The second is the Islamic from the 7th century, but mainly Shiite since the early 16th century. And the third is the Western influence. You know, many people, when I speak about this part of the Iranian identity, they say, what, Iran, Western? Yes. Iran, even now, the children of the leaders of Iran are in America. They're going to study there. Many in North America, in Canada, and other places, but their culture, their education system is based on American universities. So but it's very difficult to accommodate with these three basic balls in head. So some people, for them, the Islamic history is more important. For some, is the Persian civilization is more important. For some of them, being part of the West. But in the recent few years, or maybe 2 decades, Iran turned to the East. And this is more dramatic situation. And I think that today they are closer with Russia and with China. So when we speak about these countries in the Middle East and where is Iran going, and there is criticism in Iran. Some people think in Iran, and they speak loudly. They speak. No, one of them became such. It was viral in the social media. A professor of Tehran University who refused to step on the Israeli and American flag. If you Google it, you will see he pushed the people that are guarding the place so that he can move beyond the flags and not to step on it. He was on his way to interview in television, and on television he said, why we have to step on the topple the flag of Israel and Iran. Recently, he said, why we this call death to Israel? I, as one, even now, during the war in Gaza, I recognize the state of Israel. So there are, and the majority of the people of Iran are not supporting the policy of this regime, because what was this revolution about? I lived in Iran the last 2 years of the Shah's regime, doing research at Iran University. No one will convince me that the revolution was about the return to Islam. The revolution was about two basic issues: social justice and political justice.
How is there no backlash to this professor who was brave and bold in doing this? Because usually there's a clampdown by the government.
There are people, I don't want to say that they are immune. They cannot travel. He was recently fired, or they sent him to early retirement. But it's not one or two. There are many of them. And these people are continue to be active in Iran. I speak about, you can read their speeches in the, you have clerics. You say this is a religious regime. You know how many clerics are in jails? So it's very difficult to say whom is going to be punished by something, who is not going to be punished. But let's take, for example, the daughter of former President Rafsanjani. See what she speaks about this regime. So to take not people average, and I don't speak about the wonderful men and women, especially women recently, that are in the front of all these demonstrations. Iran is a country of constant demonstration and protest. There are very few countries in the world that they had two big revolutions in 1 century. Iran had two: constitutional revolution, Islamic revolution, and since then you have always heard about the protests.
And that's exactly where I was going, that I would like sort of that final note of where were those protests that we're talking about in reaction to what just played out in Israel. What were those reactions?
When they realize the price they have to pay. And when they realized how far the regime is willing to go suppressing in people. And once some of them said to Americans, you know, you said in America, nothing succeeds like success. In our country, nothing succeeds like suppress. And we suppress the people, you know, and there is no hope. There is no common denominator between people. One time the protest is against economic situation, one time is for freedom, one time is a woman right. Something should be coordinated, and the time would come. And I'll end by telling you something that was written by a leading Ayatollah in Iran, warned the students in one of the Iranian newspapers not to cross certain red lines and to follow through Islam. A student, whom I don't know, published an article the week after in the same paper. And he said, the title was, "Father, the Society is Young." He said, you preach us to follow real Islam. When you tell us how many Islams are there, which one of them is true and which one of them is false, and who decides? We are young and we want to have good life. The problem is, he says, that in a one-way street, the Islamic government, are driving against the flow of traffic. And this is the picture that I suggest to keep in mind. But it's going on for years. But this ultimately the future of Iran and this regime will be decided by the young girls and boys of Iran who are now doing their attempt, struggling, continues 2 years, stop for 2 years, and will come back.
Professor David Menashri, appreciate your insights into the latest attack by Iran on Israel and what is in store and what the future holds. Thank you for your excellent analysis and appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.